Let's talk to Ben Habib about this. He's a former Brexit Party MEP and joins us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. It is fascinating. We spoke to a former advisor to a former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, but we spoke to one of his former advisors a little bit earlier on the show, George Pitcher, and he was very much agreeing with what the Archbishop had to say. And he said, you know, it's his job to speak out. But he, like everyone, whenever I hear from them, they say this is a bad policy, it won't work, it's morally unacceptable, it'll affect our moral standing in the rest of the world, etc., etc. Whenever you ask, well, what's your solution, they never come up with anything practical, and what they certainly will never do is give you a number of how many people they want to take. What did you make of what Welby had to say?
Well, I mean,
there are two dimensions, really, I think, to what Welby was saying. First of all, you know, him speaking in his capacity as Archbishop of Canterbury. And, you know, on that, I think he should stay well away from these very divisive and highly sort of hot political potatoes. Attendances at church, as you know, Julia, have dropped quite dramatically over the last 10 years. I think they're down about 40% from where they were in 2009. And a lot of that, I think, is to do with the way the church has been becoming increasingly politicized. And it's an old constitutional accepted, you know, sort of protocol that the church shouldn't really be trampling on political ground. The church and the state are quite separate. So I think Welby is treading on ground which he's going to regret from his own perspective as Archbishop of Canterbury. But as to the points that he was making, you know, we keep forgetting that these people are coming from France. And France accepts that it should try and retain these people. For if France didn't accept that, it wouldn't be taking £500 million off us over the next 3 years in order to try and achieve that.
Yes.
So, I mean, the bill is only aimed at backing up what is a monetary arrangement with France to ensure that these people don't get put on these boats, don't make that dangerous or attempt to make that dangerous journey into the United Kingdom. Yeah. And I can't imagine that the Archbishop is offended by the £500 million that we're paying France. So if the principle of stopping them in France is accepted, why the bill should offend him so much, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, indeed. I mean, it's interesting. The front page of one of the papers today, Daily Mail, what's so moral about not stopping people smugglers? I mean, these people they're both people who are paying illegally to get into the country, but you could say in a lot of ways they are victims as well by the fact that they are, you know, they're having to pay this money, they're taking this risky journey. They feel that, you know, they've got a better life to be had in the UK. My thing is, just because someone thinks they've got a better life to have in the UK from France, well, sorry, that's not my issue, that's not my problem. And I think that is the general view of the British people, and that's the issue. Is that whenever you talk about this with these people, I can understand their concerns about it, and like, wouldn't it be lovely if we could make sure that everybody in the world had a nice, happy, safe life? They didn't live in a war-torn country, they didn't, you know, they didn't live in poverty. That would be great. And the guest we had on earlier was again talking about, you know, we need to improve the issue at source. We are not going to resolve every single issue in every single country, not just in the next 5-10 years, ever. There's no way. There are always going to be poorer countries. More and more people are going to want to come to rich Europe compared to poorer, you know, sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East. Now, the question has got to be, how many do we take? Because that is the fundamental question that needs to be answered by anyone who opposes this or any other policy. How many would you take? And they never give me an answer, not even to the nearest zero. Is it 10,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 1 million? This guy did say eventually we take 100,000. So when the 100,001 person turns up, are they going to close the door? Would that be immoral?
I mean, the actual number that we should be willing to take coming across the channel is nil, because these people are seeking to enter the United Kingdom illegally. Now, if you're talking about legal migration through refugee programs and asylum seekers who've made their asylum applications in countries which have an agreement with the United Kingdom for that process, well, that's a different debate. And actually, each one of those categories of people, Ukraine, Hong Kong, whatever, whether or not you agree with it, you know, each one of them has had a number given to it. But the number that should be entering the country illegally should be nil. That should be a statement of the obvious.
Yeah.
And you know, we've really got to make sure that France is held to account. The other big elephant in the room here, Julia, which no one addresses, is freedom of movement in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, the reason we've got this ability, these people have the ability to come straight to the UK is because once they're in Europe, they're free to travel within the Schengen zone without a single check. And the Europeans are making a rod for their own backs and for the United Kingdom.
And we know, but there are lots of countries. Italy is very unhappy about this, you know, Giorgia Meloni, but also the Eastern European countries. And we saw what happened in 2015 in Syria when they just put up fences and went, no, we don't want you. And they, you know, and there's still attempts by Brussels to punish those Eastern European countries for not allowing that free movement. But they, you know, they're saying we're poor countries, we can't deal with this. We don't want this we don't want to deal with these people. And the thing is, they are representing their people. And we know, we've seen Sweden, Denmark, Germany, all these countries that had these, you know, these open door policies. They are massively regretting it. And people can call people like you. They say, oh well, we're horribly xenophobic, and oh, you're happy to take Ukrainian because
xenophobia.
Well, no, exactly. They'll say, oh, you know, because the Ukrainians are white, you're happy to take those people, but you won't want people who are brown or black from Africa or the Middle East. But the reality is, it's numbers. It's about money, it's about the cost and whether people are bringing added value, but it's also crucially about culture, isn't it? It's about culture and values and the ability to assimilate and to be part of this culture and share our values. And that is something that everyone in politics seems so scared of talking about. But that's the reality on the streets for ordinary Britons.
Yeah, and I'm
so glad you brought it up, because we talk about the economic impact, the burden on infrastructure and all the rest of it. But at the heart of this, there is also the social aspect. And the social fabric of the United Kingdom, I'm afraid, is falling apart. Yep. I could go on at length on this subject, but it is no doubt a function, to some extent, of the way that we have practiced multiculturalism and our inability to stand up for the United Kingdom, for our values, for our heritage, for our history, of which we should be proud and not ashamed. And people like Welby should understand that. You know, but of course he doesn't. And we know that because, you know, with the church's involvement in slave trade, for example, he set aside £100 million to investigate what they've been up to and reparations for people that they might have offended. But for goodness sake, these people are dead. Yeah. And the church, if it believed in God, would actually pray for their souls. They have a direct contact, don't they? They can do this without...
But again, if you think that fundamentally your country's immoral and wrong and terrible and it's got a horrible colonial past, I'm just not sure you're in tune with the majority of people. Can I just ask you finally, I've got to move on, but the government basically have admitted they're going to have to scrap their pledge. It was a pledge that we'd expected from Brexit, but also one which Rishi Sunak made in the Tory leadership contest. Seems years ago now, doesn't it? But that for a post-Brexit bonfire of EU laws, by the end of this year, the 31st of December, we were going to see some 4,800 EU laws just fall by the wayside, automatically deleted from the statute book. As it is, it's only going to be 600 that are going to go. It's more like one of those little instant barbecues you can buy at the supermarket, isn't it, rather than a proper bonfire. Do you think that is that reasonable? Is that a failure on Brexit? What do you make of the government's decision on this?
It is an
failure. At the heart of British law is the principle that everything is allowed unless it's explicitly not allowed. And the notion that if we ditched 4,000 laws, somehow the United Kingdom would come to a grinding halt is nonsense. But they've allowed that narrative to, take hold. And they're using that narrative effectively to defeat the desire by the people. And again, I don't think Rishi Sunak is with us on this one. The people to cut the apron strings with Europe. Rishi Sunak unashamedly wants a close working relationship with Europe. When Badenoch and him and others blame the civil service, it is actually a false attribution. It's them that are responsible. Okay. And if for a moment we just give them the benefit of the doubt and assume it is a civil service, I mean, what useless government we've got that they can't control the administration of which they are in charge. They should take full responsibility, get rid of those laws, streamline the United Kingdom, allow Brexit to actually deliver the benefits that we all voted for, rather than keeping us so sort of inextricably stuck to this wretched organisation in Brussels.
I'm just loving every word of that. Thank you. I think everyone else was as well. Ben Habib, always so good to talk to you, big Brexit campaigner.